Velinara stood at the window of her office and watched the two suns set over the mountains. The sky turned purple and orange, just like it did every day on Kepler 442b, but today was different. Today might be the last sunset she would ever see. The message had come through the quantum relay 3 hours ago. The words still burned in her mind like acid. The Void Devourers were coming. They would arrive in 3 days. She turned away from the window and looked at the small device in her hand. It was a communicator, and on its screen was the face of her daughter Kira. Her daughter lived on a space station near the galactic core, far from here, far from what was coming. "Mom, are you still there?" Kira's voice came through the speaker. "I'm here, little star," Velinara said. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook a little. "The news feeds are talking about evacuation ships. They say some might reach you in time." Velinara closed her eyes. The evacuation ships would not come. They never did. In all the stories, in all the records of the 17 worlds that had faced the Void Devourers before, no help had ever arrived in time. The Devourers moved too fast, and space was too big. "We will be fine," she lied to her daughter. "The colony is strong." After she ended the call, Velinara walked to her door and opened it. The hallway outside was full of people. Not just her own people, the Zephyrians with their blue skin and tall bodies, but beings from many worlds. There were Krillians with their tough, rock-like skin. There were small, furry Villani who barely came up to her waist. There were the tall, thin Etherians who glowed softly in the dark. All of them were refugees. All of them had run from the Void Devourers before. Some had been running for years, jumping from world to world, always staying ahead of the mechanical swarm that ate everything in its path. Now there was nowhere left to run. She walked down the hall and took the elevator to the main council chamber. The other administrators were already there, sitting around the big table. Their faces looked tired and scared. Jorak, the military commander, was a big Krillian with scars all over his arms. He looked up when she entered. "The defense platforms are ready," he said. "All 26 of them. We have 400 fighter ships and 12 orbital cannons." "How long will that hold them?" asked Dr. Hennis, the chief medical officer. She was an Etherian, and her body glowed brighter when she was nervous. Right now she was shining like a small star. Jorak's face was hard as stone. "Maybe 2 hours. Maybe less." "The Centauran Republic had 3,000 ships," said Velinara quietly. "The vegan defense fleet had orbital rings around 6 planets. The Void Devourers went through them like they were made of paper." The room went quiet. Everyone knew the stories. The Void Devourers had been moving across the galaxy for thousands of years. They were machines, but not like any machines that the galaxy's species had ever built. They were old, older than any known civilization. They moved in great swarms, billions of ships of all sizes. They would arrive at a world, destroy every living thing, harvest all the organic matter, and move on. They left behind dead rocks and empty space. "We should evacuate the children," said Dr. Hennis, "at least the children." "To where?" Jorak asked. "Every ship we have can maybe carry 1,000 people. We have 2 million beings on this world." Velinara sat down heavily in her chair. 2 million lives, families, children who had never known war. Old beings who had thought they might finally have found a safe place to live out their days in peace. "We could try to negotiate," suggested Counselor Mirren. A small Villani whose voice was barely above a whisper. Jorak laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Negotiate with what? They don't communicate? They don't take prisoners. They don't want anything except organic matter. You can't negotiate with the force of nature. Then what do we do?" Dr. Hennis asked. Velinara looked around the table at the faces of her friends and colleagues. These beings had trusted her to lead them. They had followed her to this world, believing that maybe here, finally, they could build something lasting, something safe. "We prepare," she said finally. "We make sure everyone knows what's coming. We help them say goodbye to their families. On other worlds, we make sure the children are not afraid." "And then?" Mirren asked. "And then we die with dignity," said an old voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to look. Keeper Zan stood there, leaning on his walking stick. He was ancient, even by Etherian standards. His body glowed so faintly that he looked like morning mist. He had been alive during the first attacks, when the Void Devourers had started their march across the galaxy. "Keeper," Villanara said, standing up. "You should be resting." "I'll have plenty of time to rest soon," the old being said as he slowly made his way to an empty chair. "I've seen this before, child, many times. The fear, the planning, the hope that maybe this time will be different." "Was it ever different?" Dr. Hennis asked. Keeper Zan sat down with a soft sigh. "Once, on Rigel 7, a defense fleet lasted. Almost a full day. The defenders were very brave. It didn't matter." The room fell silent again. Outside the windows, the colony's lights were starting to come on as night fell. People were going home to their families. They were making dinner, helping children with their homework, talking about small, normal things. Most of them didn't know yet. The announcement would be made tomorrow morning. "I want to send a message," Velinara said suddenly. "To who?" Jorik asked. "To everyone. Every world, every station, every ship in known space. I want them to know what happened here. I want them to know that we existed, that we tried to build something good here." She stood up and walked to the window. The colony spread out below. Her lights twinkling like stars. There were homes down there. Schools, parks where children played. Markets where beings from different worlds traded goods and stories. It was beautiful. "I want them to know that we didn't give up," she continued. "That even when we knew we couldn't win, we stood together. All of us. Zephyrians and Krillians and Etherians and Villani and all the others. Different species, different worlds, but one people when it mattered. The message will take weeks to reach the nearest major worlds," Jorik pointed out. "I know. But maybe someday, when this is all over, when the Void Devourers have finally eaten everything there is to eat, maybe someone will find our message. Maybe they'll know that we were here. That we mattered." Keeper Zan nodded slowly. "Yes, that's good. That's what the Centaurans should have done. What we all should have done." Dr. Hennis wiped her eyes. "I'll help write it, the message." "We all will," said Mirren. They worked through the night, crafting words that would carry their story to the stars. They wrote about the colony, about the beings who lived there, about their hopes and dreams and fears. They wrote about love and friendship across species lines. They wrote about children playing in alien gardens and old beings sharing stories under strange suns as dawn broke over the mountains. Painting the sky in shades of gold and red, they transmitted their message into space. It would travel at the speed of light, carrying their voices into the dark. Somewhere out there, beyond the approaching swarm of death, someone might hear them. 3 days later, the Void Devourers would arrive. But for now, in this moment, they had said what needed to be said. They had told the universe who they were. It would have to be enough. The alarm started screaming at exactly noon on the third day. Velinara was in the central command center when the sensors picked up the first ships. She watched the display screen as tiny dots appeared at the edge of the solar system. The dots were moving fast, much faster than any normal ship could travel. "How many?" she asked, though she already knew the answer would be terrible. "Sensors are still counting," said Lieutenant Korex, a young Zephyrian who worked the detection systems. His voice was shaking. "Over 1,000 so far. No, wait, over 5,000. They keep coming." The main screen showed the tactical display of their system. Kepler 442b was the third planet from their twin suns. The colony was on the main continent, where most of the 2 million beings lived. Around the planet, their small defense fleet waited. 26 platforms, 400 fighter ships, and 12 orbital cannons. It looked so small on the screen. "Time until they reach us?" Velinara asked. 6 hours at their current speed, Korex replied. "But they're still accelerating." "Commander." Jark stood next to the tactical table, his stone-like face showing no emotion. His hands were folded behind his back. He had seen battle before, back when the Krillian world still existed. He knew what was coming. "Alert all stations," Velinara said. Begin evacuation of non-essential areas. Get the children to the deep shelters. She turned to Dr. Hennis. How are the families doing? The Etherean doctor's glow was very dim. She looked tired. The announcement this morning was hard for everyone. But they're being brave. The children especially. They don't really understand what's coming. That was probably for the best, Velinara thought. The children didn't need to know that the deep shelters wouldn't help. Nothing would help. The Void Devourers had weapons that could crack planets open. But at least the children would be together when the end came. Incoming transmission from Platform 7, said Communications Officer Plix. She was a small, furry Villani with big ears that twitched when she was nervous. Right now they were moving constantly. Put it through, Velinara said. The voice that came through the speakers was calm and professional. Command, this is Captain Yellies on Platform 7. We have visual confirmation on the lead elements of the enemy fleet. What do you see, Captain? There was a pause. Then Captain Yellies spoke. Again, and this time his voice was not so steady. Ma'am, these ships are bigger than anything in our files. The smallest ones are the size of our battleships. The largest are like small moons. Velinara closed her eyes. The files said the Void Devourers had ships of all sizes, but seeing them was different from reading about them. Continue your report, Captain. They're not slowing down, ma'am. They're heading straight for the inner system. I'm tracking over 10,000 vessels now, and more keep appearing. 10,000 ships. The largest fleet in known galactic history. Had been the combined defense force that tried to stop the Devourers at the vegan worlds. That fleet had 3,000 ships. The Devourers had destroyed it in 4 hours. Thank you, Captain. Continue monitoring and report any changes. The command center was quiet except for the soft beeping of computers and the whisper of air recyclers. Everyone was working, but Velinara could feel the fear in the room. It was like a cold weight pressing down on all of them. Ma'am, said Korex suddenly. Something's wrong with the sensor readings. What do you mean? The enemy ships just ... They were accelerating toward us. But now they're just sitting there at the edge of the system, Velinara frowned. That didn't match any of the attack. Patterns in the historical files. The Void Devourers always moved fast, hitting their targets before any defense could be organized. Are you sure the sensors are working correctly? Yes, ma'am. I've run 3 diagnostics. The readings are accurate. Commander Jorek stepped closer to the display. Show me their formation. The main screen changed to show the positions of all the enemy ships. They had arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the outer edge of the solar system. The formation was huge, stretching across millions of kilometers of space. They're surrounding us, Dr. Hennis said quietly. But why are they waiting? Velinara asked. This isn't how they usually operate. Keeper Zan had been sitting quietly in the corner, but now he spoke up. Perhaps they're scanning us. Learning about our defenses. What defenses? Jorek asked. With bitter humor. They could see everything we have from a light year away. Then the enemy ships started moving again. But they didn't rush toward the planet like everyone expected. Instead, they moved slowly, carefully, taking positions around each planet in the system. They were being methodical, precise. They're surrounding every world, Korex reported. Even the gas giants, even the asteroid belt. New contacts. Plix called out suddenly. Ships coming out of hyperspace near Planet 5. More dots appeared on the screen. These were different from the others. Smaller, but there were hundreds of them. They moved toward Planet 5, which was a mining world with only a few thousand inhabitants. What are they doing? Dr. Hennis asked. They got their answer 20 minutes later. Planet 5 began to glow. Not with explosions or fire, but with a strange, cold light that came from machines landing on its surface. The mining stations went. Silent one by one. They're harvesting, Keeper Zan said. His ancient voice was very quiet, taking everything organic. The plants, the soil, the people. Everything that was once alive. The process took 3 hours. When it was finished, Planet 5 looked different. It was still there, still spinning in space, but all the green and brown patches were gone. The oceans were empty. It was just gray. Rock floating in the dark. How long before they reach us? Velanara asked. Corex checked his instruments. At their current speed? 18 hours. 18 hours. Velanara thought about all the things people could do in 18 hours. Sleep, eat meals with their families, play games, read stories to children, hold hands with people they loved. Begin. Final preparations, she ordered. All military personnel to battle stations, all civilians to designated shelter areas. The next few hours passed like a strange dream. Velanara walked through the colony, visiting the shelters, talking to families, trying to give comfort when there was no comfort to give. The beings she met were afraid, but they were also brave. Parents held their children and told them stories. Friends sat together and shared memories. Old beings gave advice to young ones about how to face the unknown dot in the main shelter. She found a group of children from different species sitting in a circle. A young Krillian girl was teaching the others a song from her homeworld. Their voices rose together in a harmony that transcended language barriers. Velanara stood and listened for a moment, thinking that this was what they were really defending. Not the buildings or the technology, but this. The ability of different beings to sit together and make something beautiful. As evening fell, the Void Devourers began to move toward their planet. The huge ships came slowly, like a dark tide rolling across space. The smaller vessels spread. Out ahead of them, forming attack formations, Velanara returned to the command center for the final hours. The screen showed their small defense fleet moving into position. Every ship, every platform, every weapon they had was ready. Incoming. Transmission from the fleet, Plix announced. Admiral Kess wants to speak with you. Admiral Kess was a veteran Etherian who commanded their defense forces. His image appeared on the screen, and Velanara could see the bridge of his ship behind him. Administrator, he said formally, my ships are in position. We will hold them. As long as we can. How long do you think that will be? The old admiral smiled sadly. Long enough for you to say goodbye. The enemy was 4 hours away when the sensors picked up something impossible. New contacts were appearing at the edge of the system, dropping out of hyperspace in the same region where the Void Devourers had first arrived. Ma'am, Corex said, his voice filled with confusion. I'm reading new ships. But they're not Devourer vessels. The energy signatures are completely different. How many? I'm not sure. They're appearing faster than I can count them. Hundreds, maybe thousands. The main display showed the new arrivals. They were arranging themselves in a formation that no one recognized. The ships looked different too. Smaller than the Devourer vessels, but built in strange shapes with odd angles. Are they reinforcements? Dr. Hennis asked hopefully. Ships from the other colonies? Velanara shook her head. There are no fleets that large in this sector, and no one builds ships like that. The new ships were moving now, accelerating toward the center of the system. They were heading straight for the Void DEVO, URERS, and then something happened that changed everything. Data transmission came through on all frequencies. The voice was speaking a language that none of them recognized, but the translation computers worked quickly to decode it. Civilians, take cover. We have work to do. The war that followed would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The unknown ships did not wait for permission to engage. Velanara watched the tactical display in shocked silence as hundreds of strange vessels charged directly at the Void Devourer fleet. No formation she had ever studied involved flying straight at an enemy that outnumbered you 20 to 1. It was suicide. What are they doing? Dr. Hennis whispered, before anyone could answer. Space erupted in fire. The new ships opened fire with weapons that turned the darkness between stars into blazing light. Streams of energy lanced out from their gun ports, striking the nearest Devourer vessels. But these were not the careful, precise shots that military academies taught. These were walls of destruction that lit up entire sections of space. Ma'am, Corex said, his voice filled with disbelief. Those energy readings? I've never seen anything like them. They're pouring more power into their weapons than our entire defense grid uses. The first wave of Devourer ships returned fire. Their beam weapons, which had destroyed countless worlds, reached out toward the attacking fleet. The unknown ships did something that no sane military commander would ever order. Instead of taking evasive action or raising shields, they flew directly into the enemy fire, and they survived. "Impossible," Commander Jorak muttered. "No ship can take a direct hit from Devour primary weapons." But these ships were not only surviving the hits, they were getting closer. And as they closed the distance, their weapons became more devastating. Explosions bloomed across Devourer hulls like deadly flowers. Ships that had been built to last for millennia began to come apart under the relentless assault. "Incoming transmission," Plix announced. "It's from the lead ship of the unknown fleet." "Put it through," Velinara ordered. A new voice came through the speakers. It was speaking that strange language again, but this time the computer translated it immediately. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earthship Retribution. All civilian vessels and defense platforms withdraw to minimum safe distance. We are beginning primary bombardment. United Earthship." Dr. Hennis repeated, "What's Earth?" None of them had ever heard of Earth. It was not in any of their star charts or historical records. But whoever these Earth beings were, they fought. Like nothing the galaxy had ever seen, the ship called Retribution was leading the charge into the heart of the Devourer formation. It was not the largest ship in the unknown fleet, but it moved with a deadly grace that spoke of long experience in battle. As Velinara watched, it fired something that her sensors could barely track. "What was that?" she asked. Corex was working frantically at his console. "Some kind of projectile weapon. But the velocity, it's moving at nearly the speed of light." The projectile struck a Devourer battleship dead center. The ship, which was the size of a small city, simply vanished. One moment it was there, returning fire at the attacking fleet. The next moment there was only expanding gas and metal fragments. "One shot," Jorak said quietly. "One shot destroyed a battleship," more projectiles followed. The human ships, because that was what they were calling themselves now, fired again and again. Each shot was perfectly aimed, perfectly timed. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for thousands of years were being blown apart, like children's toys, but the Devourers were not helpless. They began to adapt, changing their formations, bringing their most powerful weapons to bear. A group of destroyer-class Devourer ships, each one larger than the colony's biggest defense platform, concentrated their fire on a single human vessel. The human ship took the hits without slowing down. Its hull glowed white-hot from the energy impacts, but it kept flying, it kept shooting. And then it did something that made everyone in the command center gasp. It rammed the nearest Devourer ship. The collision should have destroyed both vessels. Instead, the human ship tore through the Devourer's hull like it was made of paper. It emerged from the other side, still firing, still intact. "How is that possible?" Dr. Hennis asked. "I don't know," Velinara admitted. "I don't understand any of this." The battle was spreading across the entire system now. More human ships were arriving, dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. They joined the fight without hesitation, adding their firepower to the assault. The space around Kepler 442b became a maze of energy beams, explosions, and burning wreckage. "Ma'am," Plix called out, "the humans are broadcasting on all frequencies. They want to talk to us." "Put them through," Velinara said. A new voice came through the speakers, different from the captain they had heard before. This one sounded older, more authoritative. "This is Admiral Marcus Webb of the Human Colonial Defense Force. Colony Administrator, please respond." Velinara took a deep breath. "This is Administrator Velinara of the Kepler 442b colony. Admiral Webb, we don't understand what's happening." "What's happening is that we got your distress call. Sorry we're late. We were dealing with these mechanical pests in the Andromeda approach vectors." "Our distress call?" Velinara was confused. "We only sent out a message 3 days ago." 3 days? The Admiral sounded surprised. "That was faster than we expected. Usually takes us weeks to track down a Devourer swarm this size. You fought them before?" There was a pause. Then Admiral Webb's voice came back, and there was something like dark humor in it. Administrator, we've been hunting these things for almost 50 years. This is just another day at the office for us." While they talked, the battle continued to rage around them. Human fighters, ships so small they barely showed up on sensors, were dancing between the massive Devourer vessels. They moved like they were playing a game instead of fighting for their lives. And everywhere they went, enemy ships died. "Admiral," Velinara said, "how many ships do you have?" "In this task force, about 800. Don't worry, it's more than enough. 800 ships against over 10,000 Devourer vessels. It should have been hopeless." But as Velinara watched the tactical display, she realized that the numbers didn't seem to matter. The human ships were winning. "Keeper Zan," she called to the old Etherean, "have you ever seen anything like this?" The ancient being was staring at the displays with wide eyes. "Never, in all my years, in all the records. Of all the fallen worlds, there has never been anyone who could stand against the Devourers like this." "Who are these humans?" Dr. Hennis asked. Before anyone could speculate, Captain Chin's voice came through again. "Administrator Velinara, we're going to need you to keep your people in the shelters for a few more hours. We're about to use some of our bigger guns." "Bigger guns?" Velinara looked at the destruction already filling the space around their world. "These aren't your main weapons?" "These are just our standard ship-to-ship armaments. For a swarm this size, we need to break out the real firepower." What followed defied every law of physics that Velinara thought she understood. 3 human ships, larger than the others, moved to positions around the Devourer fleet. They began to glow with energy so intense that the colony's sensors couldn't measure it properly. "All ships, clear the fire zones," Admiral Webb's voice commanded, initiating synchronized bombardment in 30 seconds. The human fleet pulled back in perfect coordination, leaving clear lanes of fire for the 3 large ships. The Devourers seemed to sense what was coming. They began moving frantically, trying to escape whatever was about to happen. They were too late. The 3 ships fired simultaneously. What came out of their weapons was not energy beams or projectiles. It was something that bent space itself, creating channels of pure destruction that reached across millions of kilometers in an instant. Every Devourer ship caught in those channels simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not blown apart, but erased from reality as if they had never been there at all. In less than 10 seconds, half the Devourer fleet was gone. "Sweet stars," Jorik whispered. "What kind of beings are these humans?" The remaining Devourers tried to retreat, but the human ships pursued them relentlessly. There was no mercy in their attack, no hesitation. They hunted down every fleeing vessel with the efficiency of predators who had done this many times before. "Admiral Webb," Velinara said into her communicator, "your weapons... your technology. Where did you learn to build such things?" "Learn?" The Admiral sounded puzzled. "We didn't learn this from anyone. We built it ourselves. When the Devourers first showed up in our space, we had a choice, adapt or die, so we adapted." "But how did you know what to build?" "Simple. We looked at what they could do, and we built things that could do it better. Then we kept improving until we could hunt them instead of the other way around." On the tactical display, the last group of Devourer ships was making a desperate attempt to escape the system. They were accelerating toward the edge of space, trying to reach hyperspace before the humans could catch them. They didn't make it. Human fighters swarmed over them like angry insects, their small weapons tearing through armor that had protected those ships for millennia. One by one, the ancient vessels died until only debris and radiation remained. "System clear," Captain Chun reported. "Old Devourer vessels destroyed or disabled. Beginning search and rescue operations." Velinara looked around the command center, at the faces of her staff. They all wore the same expression of stunned disbelief. The Void Devourers, the terror that had haunted the galaxy for thousands of years, had been destroyed in less than 4 hours. The first human shuttle landed at the colony's main spaceport 6 hours after the battle ended. Velinara stood at the landing pad with her senior staff, watching the strange craft settle onto the ground. It was smaller than most shuttles she knew, but it moved with the same deadly grace she had seen in the human warships. Even at rest, it looked dangerous. The shuttle's doors opened with a soft hiss, and the first humans stepped out. They looked almost normal. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, just like most species in the galaxy. But there was something different about the way they moved. They walked like predators, always alert, always ready. Their eyes scanned everything around them before they took. Each step, the leader was a woman with short brown hair and scars on her hands. She wore a uniform that was practical rather than decorative. When she spoke, her voice was calm and confident. "Administrator Velinara, I'm Captain Sarah Shun. We spoke during the battle." Velinara stepped forward and offered the traditional Zephyrian greeting, pressing her palms together. "Captain Chin, we owe you our lives." The human woman looked uncomfortable. "You don't owe us anything. This is what we do." Behind Captain Chun, other humans were unloading equipment from the shuttle. They worked with smooth efficiency, like they had done this hundreds of times before. Everything they did was precise, purposeful. "How many of you are there?" Dr. Hennis asked. Her glow was brighter now, showing curiosity instead of fear. "On the ships?" "About 40,000 crew members in this task force," Captain Chun replied. "But we're bringing down just a small team to help with repairs and medical assistance." 40,000. Velinara tried to imagine that many beings working together with such perfect coordination. The largest military operation in known galactic history had involved maybe 50,000 troops from a dozen different species, and it had taken months to organize. "Captain," Commander Jorek said, "your weapons, your ships. We've never seen technology like that." Captain Chun shrugged. "It gets the job done, but how did you develop such advanced systems? What civilization taught you to build them?" The human woman looked puzzled. "No one taught us. We figured it out ourselves." "That's impossible," Dr. Hennis said. "Technology like that takes thousands of years to develop. Entire civilizations, working together across centuries. How long have your people been spacefaring?" Keeper Zan asked. The old Etherean was studying the humans with intense interest. "About 300 years, Captain Chun answered. "But we've only been fighting the Devourers for the last 50. The aliens exchanged glances. 300 years was nothing in galactic terms. Some species took longer than that just to develop basic spaceflight. Yet these humans had somehow created weapons that could destroy the most feared enemy in known space." "Captain Chun," Velinara said carefully, "could you tell us about your homeworld?" "About Earth?" The woman's expression softened slightly. "Earth is ... was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds, about 12 billion people when I was born." "Was?" Dr. Hennis caught the past tense. Captain Chun's face went hard. "The Devourers found it 52 years ago. They took everything. The oceans, the forest, the cities. All of it." The command center went silent. Velinara felt a chill run through her body. "Your entire homeworld?" "Every last grain of soil, every drop of water, every living thing." The captain's voice was steady, but there was something cold and terrible underneath it. 15 billion people died that day." "Then how are you here?" Jorek asked quietly. "Because some of us weren't on Earth when it happened. Colony ships, research stations, mining operations. Maybe 500,000 humans scattered across a dozen star systems. When we saw what had happened to our home, we had a choice to make." "What choice? Run and hide like everyone else, or fight back?" Captain Chun gestured to one of her team members, who brought over a small device. When he activated it, a holographic image appeared in the air. It showed a star map with thousands of red dots scattered across multiple galaxies. "These are Devourer locations that we've confirmed over the past 50 years, the captain explained. "Each red dot represents a swarm or fleet." Velinara stared at the map. "There were so many dots that they almost covered the entire display?" "There are millions of them. We estimate about 40 million ships total, spread across 7 galaxies, maybe more in the unexplored regions." "And you're fighting all of them?" Dr. Hennis asked in amazement. "Someone has to." Captain Chang touched the device and some of the red dots changed to blue. These are the ones we've destroyed so far. About 60% of their total force? 60%? Velanara looked at the blue dots and realized that each one represented a victory like the one she had just witnessed. Battles where human ships had faced impossible odds and won. How? Keeper Zan asked. How does a species that lost its homeworld become strong enough to hunt the hunters? Captain Chen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her words were simple but carried enormous weight. Because we had nothing left to lose. She walked over to the window and looked out at the colony. People were starting to come out of the shelters now, blinking in the sunlight, hardly believing they were still alive. Your people built something beautiful here, she said. Different species living together, working together, creating something better than any of them could make alone. When the Devourers came, you were willing to die to protect it. Oh, but we couldn't actually protect it, Velanara said sadly. We were helpless. No, you weren't. The captain turned back to face them. You chose to stand together instead of running. You chose to send a message to the stars rather than just hiding and hoping. That takes courage. Courage doesn't stop Devourer beam weapons, Drarik pointed out. Maybe not. But it stops you from becoming like them. Captain Chun activated the holographic device again. This time it showed technical schematics of human weapons and ships. The designs were unlike anything in galactic databases. They were efficient, brutal, and built for one purpose, killing void devourers. When we lost Earth, we could have spent our time building new colonies, new cities, new homes, she explained. Instead, we spent it building these. Every resource, every brilliant mind, every moment of our lives for 50 years has gone into one goal, making sure no other species ever has to watch their homeworld die. But the cost, Dr. Hennis whispered. To focus everything on war for half a century ... The cost of not doing it would have been higher, Captain Chun's voice was matter-of-fact. Every world the Devourers take, every species they wipe out. That's on us if we could have stopped it but didn't. One of the other humans approached and spoke quietly to the captain. She nodded and turned back to the colonists. We need to start the repair work on your defense platforms, she said. And our medical teams want to check on anyone who was injured during the evacuation. Of course, Velanara said. But Captain, can I ask, what happens now? Will you stay to protect us? Captain Chun shook her head. We can't. There are 17 other distress calls waiting for us in this sector alone. And our deep space scouts have found 3 major Devourer breeding facilities that need to be eliminated before they can produce more ships. So you'll just leave? Dr. Hennis asked. Go fight another battle somewhere else? That's the job. The captain's voice was calm, but Velanara could hear the exhaustion underneath it. But we'll leave you with some equipment. Improved sensors, better weapons, emergency beacons that connect directly to our communication network. If the Devourers come back, we'll know about it immediately. Will they come back? Keeper Zan asked. Probably not to this system. We made sure to destroy their scouts before they could report your location to other swarms. But there are always more of them out there. Captain Chun looked around at each of them, and for a moment her professional mask slipped. Velanara saw something in her eyes that she recognized. It was the same look she had seen in the mirror 3 days ago, when the distress call had first arrived. The look of someone carrying a burden too heavy for any one person to bear. Captain, Velanara said gently, when was the last time you went home? When did you last see Earth's sky? The woman's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Earth doesn't have a sky anymore. Home is wherever the next battle is. She turned and began walking back toward the shuttle. We'll have the repairs finished in 8 hours. After that, we need to move on. As the humans returned to their work, Velanara stood with her staff and watched them. These beings had lost everything, had spent half a century turning themselves into perfect weapons against an ancient enemy. They had won a victory that should have been impossible, saved 2 million lives without hesitation, and now they were preparing to leave and do it all again somewhere else. They're not just fighting the Devourers, Keeper Zan said quietly. They're fighting for everyone. For people they've never met, on worlds they'll never see. Why? Dr. Hennis asked. What drives them to keep going? Velanara thought about the message they had sent into space 3 days ago. The desperate words of people who wanted to be remembered, who wanted their lives to matter. Because they remember what it was like to lose everything, she said. And they've decided that no one else should have to go through that if they can help it. 3 months later, Velanara stood in the same spot where she had watched the sunset before the Devourers came. But everything was different now. The colony was alive in ways it had never been before. The defense platforms that the humans had repaired were stronger than anything they had possessed originally. The new sensor arrays could detect threats from 3-star systems away. Most importantly, the emergency beacon sat quietly in the communication center, ready to call for help if it was ever needed again. But the real changes were in the people themselves. Administrator, said Lieutenant Corex, approaching with the data. Pad in his hands, the morning reports are ready. Velanara took the pad and looked at the numbers. Mining output was up 30%. Agricultural production had increased by almost half. New construction projects were being completed ahead of schedule. The colony was not just surviving anymore, it was thriving. The humans left us more than just equipment, she said to Corex. They left us hope, the young Zephyrian nodded. People work differently now. They believe we can actually protect ourselves. It was true. In the months since the battle, the colonists had thrown themselves into improving their defenses and their lives with an energy that surprised everyone. The different species worked together more closely than ever before, sharing knowledge and resources without hesitation. Dr. Hennis approached from the medical center, her glow bright with satisfaction. The new medical scanners the humans gave. US have already saved 12 lives, she reported. And we've been able to treat conditions we never could before. Any word from the other colonies? Velanara asked. 3 more systems reported successful human interventions this week, Dr. Hennis replied. The Ultron mining complex, the vegan refugee station, and the research colony on Proxima 7, all saved within hours of sending distress calls, Velanara smiled. The human communication network was more efficient than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Word traveled fast when colonies needed help, and help always seemed to arrive in time. Ma'am, Corex said hesitantly, there's something else in the report, something unusual. What is it? We've been receiving applications from other species. They want to join the colony. Velanara looked at him in surprise. Join us? Why? They say they want to be part of something that stood against the Devourers, something that survived. It made sense, in a way. News of the battle had spread throughout the sector. The story of the little colony that had faced certain death and been saved by mysterious warriors from Earth had become something of a legend. People wanted to be part of that story. How many applications? She asked. Over 10,000 so far. Engineers, doctors, scientists, farmers, entire families. They're coming from all over the galaxy. Before Velanara could respond, Commander Jorak came running toward them. The big Krillian looked excited, which was unusual for him. Administrator, he called out, you need to see this. We're receiving a transmission from Admiral Webb. They hurried to the communication center, where Plix was working at her console. The Villani's ears were twitching with excitement. It's coming through now, she announced. Admiral Webb's image appeared on the main screen. He looked tired but pleased. Behind him, Velanara could see the bridge of a human warship. Administrator Velanara, the Admiral said with a smile. How is the colony doing? Very well, Admiral. Thanks to you and your people. How can we help you? Actually, I'm calling with some news I thought you'd want to hear. We just finished a major operation in the Andromeda Galaxy. The last Devourer breeding facility has been destroyed. The room went silent. Velanara felt her heart skip a beat. The last one? That's right. After 50 years of hunting, we finally eliminated their ability to build new ships. There are still scattered fleets out there, maybe a few 100,000 vessels total, but they can't replace their losses anymore. Dr. Hennis gasped. You mean you've actually won? Admiral Webb's expression became serious. We've won the ability to win, if that makes sense. The Devourers can still do a lot of damage, but now it's just a matter of time before we hunt down every last one of them. How long? Keeper Zan asked. The old Etherean had been listening from his chair in the corner. Our best estimate is another 20 years, maybe 25. But every month there are fewer of them and more of us. Velinara felt tears forming in her eyes. 20 years seemed like a long time, but after millennia of terror, it felt like tomorrow. Admiral, what will your people do when it's over? When there are no more Devourers to fight? The human officer was quiet for a moment. Honestly, we haven't thought that far ahead. For 50 years, this war has been our entire existence. But I suppose we'll figure it out when the time comes. You could come here, Dr. Hennis said suddenly. When it's over, you could settle here? Make new homes, Admiral Webb smiled sadly. That's kind of you, Doctor. But I'm not sure we remember how to live peacefully anymore. We've been warriors for so long that it's all we know. People can learn, Velinara said gently. We could teach. You, all of us together? Maybe, the Admiral said. But first, we have work to finish. The transmission ended, and the command center was quiet for a long moment. Outside the windows, the colony continued its daily life. Children played in the gardens. Market vendors called out their goods in a dozen different languages. Families sat together in the evening light. 20 years, Jork said finally. In 20 years, the galaxy will be safe. Not just safe, Keeper Zan corrected. Free for the first time in recorded history, every species will be able to build and explore and grow without fear. Velinara walked to the window and looked out at her people. The Zephyrians with their blue skin, the rock-like Krillians, the glowing Etherians, the small furry Villani, all different, all working together. All alive because a group of humans had decided that no one else should lose their home the way Earth had been lost. We should do something, she said suddenly. What do you mean? Dr. Hennis asked. For the humans. When this is all over, we should do something to honor what they've sacrificed. Like what? Velinara thought about Captain Chun, about the exhaustion in her eyes and the way she had said that home was wherever the next battle was. She thought about Admiral Webb and his 40,000 crew members spending their lives fighting for people they would never meet. We should rebuild Earth, she said. The others stared at her. Rebuild a planet? Jorok asked. That's impossible. Is it? We have the location? The humans probably have soil samples, genetic databases, atmospheric readings. We have terraforming technology, and now we have peace to work on long-term projects. It would take hundreds of years, Dr. Hennis pointed out. Then we start now and let our children finish it. And their children after that. Keeper Zan was nodding slowly. A gift from the galaxy to the species that saved it? I like this idea. We could ask the other colonies to help, Korak suggested. All the worlds the humans have saved, everyone working together. We could make it even better than it was before, Dr. Hennis added. Use everything we've learned about living together, about building something that lasts. Velinara smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. When the war is over, when the last Devourer ship is destroyed, we'll give them a home. A real home. She activated the colony's main communication system and began composing a message. Not a distress call this time, but something else. A message of hope and gratitude that would travel to every world the humans had saved. To all free colonies in known space, she began. 3 months ago, we faced extinction at the hands of the Void Devourers. We were saved by beings who lost their own world 50 years ago and have spent their lives ensuring that no one else would suffer the same fate. She paused and looked around at her staff, all of them nodding encouragement. The humans gave us our future. When their war is over, I propose we give them theirs. Let us rebuild Earth together. Let us show them that their sacrifice was not just about destroying evil, but about creating something beautiful. The message went out across the galaxy, carrying with it the dreams of billions of beings who owed their lives to a species that had chosen to fight rather than hide, somewhere in The dark between stars, human ships continued their endless hunt. But now they were not just fighting to destroy the past. They were fighting toward a future where they could finally come home. The war would end. The galaxy would be free. And Earth would rise again, built by the hands of those who remembered what it meant to be saved. In the evening light of Kepler 442b, Velinara watched the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. Each point of light represented worlds where families were safe, where children could grow up without fear, where different species could work together to build something better than any of them could create alone. The humans had roared from the stars like thunder, bringing death to those who would destroy life. But they had also brought something else, something perhaps even more precious than victory. They had brought the proof that sometimes, when everything seems lost, someone will still stand up and fight for what matters. And that made all the difference.